Howdy y'all, TheJTJ here, roll2wound.com. We're doing another Soulblight Gravelords Warscroll review. We're covering the Bloodseeker Palanquin and the Mortise Engine. So, let's get ready to roll. Alright, today we'll be covering the Bloodseeker Palanquin and the Mortise Engine. I'm going to start with the Palanquin. It has 12 wounds. The move is based off the damage table. It has a 14-inch move normally, or at full health. It has a 4-up save and 10 bravery. It has a missile weapon, which we'll talk a little bit about in a second, and 2 melee weapons, the Bloodletting Blades, which is 4 3s, -1 D3. Also Spectral Claws and Blades. Those also are based off of the damage table, and at max they're doing 12 attacks at 5 to hit, 4 to wound, no rend, and 1 damage. As we can see the damage table here, your move is effective, your Well of the Damned, and the Spectral Claws and Blades. This is the things that get debuffed as you take more damage. The Bloodseeker Palanquin is a single model ridden by a Sanguinarch armed with a Bloodletting Blade. The model Spectral Hosts attack with their Well of the Damned and Spectral Claws and Blades. This model can fly. Abilities: a fine vintage. If an enemy hero is slain within 9 inches of this model, add 1 to the attack characteristic of melee weapons used by friendly vampire units wholly within 12 of this model until your next hero phase. So, look, it's not the easiest thing to get, but add 1 to attacks to Blood Knights, Vargeist, that is good, or just a Vampire Lord or Zombie Dragon, or anything really. Frightful Touch. If the unmodified hit roll for an attack made with this model's Spectral Claws and Blades is 6, that attack inflicts 1 mortal wound on the target and the attack sequence ends. Basically, this is your normal ghost doing their mortal wounds on 6s. Alright, Well of the Damned, going back up, that was this missile weapon that you have here. Notice that the damage table shows that the range on that is 12. Do not use the attack sequence for attack made by Well of the Damned. Instead, roll a dice for each enemy unit within range of the model's Well of the Damned. On a 4+, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. So this is basically a bubble that shrinks as it takes more wounds. But it starts out at 12-inch, and a 12-inch bubble of all enemy units is not bad. It's a 4-up to do D3, but if you've got lots of small units or you've driven real close to the enemy lines, you're probably going to be dishing out a few mortal wounds there. This model is a wizard and can cast 1 spell. It knows Blood Siphon, that's its signature spell. Blood Siphon has a casting value of 6. If successfully cast, pick 1 enemy hero within 12 inches of the caster that is visible to them and roll a dice. 1-2 suffers 1 mortal wound. 3-4 suffers D3. 5-6 suffers D6 mortal wounds. So you're sort of seeing the combo there with Fine Vintage and Blood Siphon. That's one way that you can sort of snipe small enemy heroes to get that extra attack. It's a good combo. It's kind of hard to make both of them go off at the same time. I mean, there's a lot of rolls and a lot of things that have to line up to make that happen. All right, keywords: Death, Vampire, Malignant, Soulblight Gravelords, Hero, Wizard, and Bloodseeker Palanquin. Okay, so the cost is $2.90. The notes are it's a vampire, it's malignant, which is interesting. There's not really anything in this book that arcs off of that. Hero, wizard, and it's a behemoth, so keep that in mind when you're list building. All right, so we're just looking at raw max wound output is 24. That's everything hits, everything wounds, max. Average wound output is closer to 5, which is not great. This is a very spiky on its damage because of all the mortal wounds, because of all the D3 damage on the 4 attacks. So this can swing wildly. To be honest, it's not a frontline fighter, but could spike and take out weak units. So this is the type of thing that you drive into some chaff, into a 10 wound unit, and maybe it can do some damage, but you don't depend on it to fight frontline regularly. In fact, that's not where you're wanting. If you're doing that, you're throwing your points away. The good, it's a 14-inch move at full health. It can fly. Big base for backline buffing. So remember, all this in the Mortise Engine and the Coven Throne, they have a bigger base, and that extends all these bubbles that they have. Mortal wound output potential. If you sort of really break down the Warscroll, there's several different ways to do mortal wound output. The problem is all of them are very close to mid range, and they all require several things to happen and rolls and different stuff. So it's none of these things are guaranteed. Find Vintage goes great with Blood Knights. The bad, it's a 4+ save. It doesn't have the hunger, and Well of the Dam needs a 4 up. So even if you think, hey, there's 3 enemy units around me, Well of the Dam's going to go off. You're still needing 50-50 to even do any damage as it is. So it would be just nice if maybe it was a 3 up. I don't know. It just seems very. It seems like to get into that range, to get into all those units, you're going to have to roll 4 up for each of them. Then you're going to have to do D3. So while it looks okay on paper, I think it's probably going to fail more than it actually helps. All right, thoughts. Not a bad option for a backline hero that buffs and sits behind your horde of troops. Damage output is very up and down. So is the mortal wound output. All require good rolls and cannot be counted on every turn, but very nice when they spike. This is one of the things I really see with this, that you're expecting, hey, I'm going to get 5 to 10 mortal wounds. You're not. It's just there's too many rolls. There's too many conditions on the board that have to be met for it to really spike hard on those mortal wound output. All right, so I'm going to give some thoughts on how this unit can play into different bloodlines. We're going to start with the Legion of Blood. Their battle traits, which are Immortal Majesty and Favored Retainers. So since the Bloodseeker has the vampire keywords, it works with both of these traits. The first one being is going to cause the extra D3 to run from Battle Shock, and no negative modifiers on Death Rider when 12 inches. So both of these are super good. If you're going to make it your commander or your general, and you're going to add a loaded artifact on it, Sanguine Blur. Friendly units start a pile and move within 12. The general can move an extra 3, so that's really nice for your death rattle, especially bigger blocks. Soulbound Garments are something to look at when you're taking this, because that's going to add 1 to the save rolls for attack that target this, and that's one of the issues I had with the Bloodseeker. It's a 4 up, so it's gonna you're gonna get an auto +1 save on here. And then the Oblet Arcana is basically once per hero phase, you can make an enemy wizard that successfully casts a spell within 18 inches, and after it's attempted to unbind the spell. Before resolving the effects of that spell, you can roll a dice, and on a 5+ that spell is unbound. So if you're really worried about enemy magic, that's maybe what you look like. But I think I like Soulbound. I think you're going to get more mileage out of that probably with every matchup. But against certain matchups, if you're playing against somebody with Nagash or somebody with really key spells, that Oblet might be the way to go. All right, moving on to Legion of the Night. Not saying that this wouldn't work in Legion of the Night, just not a lot of a play with how you can use it. So let's look at it doesn't benefit from the bait because it's not Death Rattle or a Dead Walker. It could technically outflank, but you would have to build around that and know that's what you want to do. It does have a 14-inch move, so it could do that with your cavalry if you wanted to. If I'm taking it, I'm looking at Unbending Will. Do not take Battle Shock tests for friendly Legion of Night units while they are wholly in 12 of this general, especially if you're running lots of Death Rattle, lots of zombies. You kind of need that no Battle Shock test. That's what what this book really needs, especially if you're running lots of huge blocks. And this, you can put that on there and it really helps. Morbeck's Claw would be the artifact that I would run, and that's going to be, if you make it immobile, it would be +2 to casting. And so that will make it less mobile, but you're going to get the pluses to cast. It's just coming down to how you're building your list and what you want to do with it. Moving right along to the Vikrose Dynasty. The battle traits are the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack. The Bloodseeker will work with both of those because it's a vampire, hero, and a wizard. So you're going to get a +1 to wound, draw your death rattle and dead walkers with within 9 inch, and this will get to reroll its casting. So those are really nice and something to think about if you're taking the Vikrose Dynasty. As far as the command traits go, I just put pick one because I think that every single one of these is a viable command trait, just depending on what you're trying to do with the Bloodseeker, what your build or your army is. I mean, they're all viable in my mind. Now, we're moving on to the artifacts. I actually don't really like any of the book artifacts on this from the Vikrose. I just don't think that, because I'm thinking the Bloodseeker's more of a backline, like hero wizard buff unit. I'm actually looking at the Arcane Tome to give it an extra spell, or like maybe taking an extra enhancement with a spell lore to just give some extra spells into your dynasty. So I might look outside of their artifacts if I'm taking it in Vikrose. But, if you disagree with me, let me know in the comments. All right, let's move along to the Castellai Dynasty. The battle traits here are the Shifting Keep, which you can outflank your Blood Knights, and Might of the Crimson Keep, which that is that little table, which if you have a Dynasty Vampire and they kill something, they'll get extra benefits. This unit is a vampire, so it would benefit from that. What are we looking like if we're taking this with Castellai? Well, it can keep up with your Blood Knights. It moves 14, so you won't have any trouble keeping up with your units of Blood Knights anywhere they go. If I'm building this, I might look at Swift and Deadly as the command trait. You can reroll charge roll for friendly Castellai Dynasty units while they are wholly within 12 of this general. So this could be a situation where you have your hammer of Blood Knights and the Bloodseekers rolling around with them, buffing them, and then letting them reroll their charges, things like that. If I'm taking an artifact from here, Fragment of the Keep, subtract 1 from rune rolls for attacks made with melee weapons by enemy units within 6 of this bear. And you're going to have to get it kind of close for that. But that -1 from wound rolls is really, really nice. Kind of goes better. Fragment goes better on a Vampire Lord on Zombie Dragon. But if you position this right, it is helpful. And it's also helpful for keeping the Palanquin alive as well. Use it as a mobile Blood Knight buffing platform. Use the Mortal Wound output to weaken units for your Blood Knights to take out, so that's something else to think about. You can hit them with Blood Siphon to lower that hero down, let your Blood Knights kill them. The Blood Knights get the bonus for Bloodied Strength. Also, look at a fine vintage. If you can manage to get a kill with the Bloodseeker Palanquin, they're going to buff all those Blood Knights around you. So those are some good combos. There's some synergy here with Blood Knights, so it's not to be overlooked. I just think that we get really excited, look at things on paper, and in play, in actuality, on the tabletop, it might be a little bit harder to get some of those things to go off than you think. And finally, we're going to wrap up with the Anmangori. I probably wouldn't take the Bloodseeker as a general here. I don't think it's the best bloodline or use of points. I'm not saying that if somebody took it in Anmangori, I'd be like, oh, that's the worst idea ever. I just think that if you're looking at the command traits, you're looking at the artifacts, and you're looking at the battle traits, that there's better units to make your general, make your leader, to put your artifacts on. So possibly if you're taking Anmangori, don't look to take the Bloodseeker. If I'm wrong, or you disagree with me on that, please let me know. Leave it in the comments. All right, so spell Blood Siphon, good range potential to hit for D6, but needs the rolls to go your way. It is, I think, a B plus. It's really swingy. You can't be counting on. So even if you do manage to cast it, you got someone in range, you still hit them. Oh, I rolled a 6. Now I'm going to roll my d6 damage. You still could roll a 1. So there's a lot of swingy damage there, but it does have some good potential. Unit rating is an A-. Lots of utility as a backline hero. Great way to buff Blood Knights. And I think if you're really saying, hey, which dynasty it works best in, I think you could take them in Legion of Blood or the Castellai Dynasty. Either one of those, I think they could work really good in. So that's sort of why, just looking at how I would use this in those dynasties, especially if you're running lots of named characters and you need somewhere to make a general, give them a command trait. I wouldn't be shocked to see someone running a Bloodseeker Palanquin. If you don't agree with that assessment or rating, let me know why. All right, moving along to the Mortise Engine. I have 12 wounds, and the move is also 14. Save is a 4-up, and bravery is 10. If we're looking at the Well of the Damned, it is once again based off this damage table and the special rules at the bottom, so we'll check that out a second. It is a Mortis Staff and Spectral Claws. The damage output is slightly less than the Palanquin. All right, damage table. You got move, Well of the Damned, and Spectral Claws, so the more it gets damaged, the slower, and the less that its ranged and close combat output is. It's a single model driven by a Corpse Master armed with a Mortis Staff. This model can fly. Frightful Touch, which basically is, once again, your Spectral Claws and Daggers special rule. It'll go and shoot off mortal wounds if you do a 6 to hit. Well of the Damned. Do not use the attack sequence for attacks made with Well of the Damned. Instead, roll a dice for each enemy unit within range on the model's Well of the Damned table. On a 4-up, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. So once again, we're looking at max range of 12. Every unit involved in that. On a 4-up, they can take D3 mortal wounds. So far everything we've looked at is pretty similar, except for the Mortis Staff. But you've got the same chassis basically, and the options of the vehicle is a little bit different. It does have some special rules. The Reliquary, once per battle in your hero phase, you can say that this model will unleash the energies of its Reliquary. If you do so, roll a dice for each unit within 12 of this model. On a 2-up, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. Death units are not affected by this ability. So I always am torn when I see that in this book, that death units aren't affected, because technically a quarter of all armies out there are death, and you're taking something that isn't going to have any effect on, technically 25% of the enemy armies out there. But I understand why it's there, because it doesn't want to hurt your own troops. You can stack this with Whale, and you're going to do 2d3 damage to each unit, or the possibility within 12 inches. It's not horrible. The problem is it's only once per game, so you got to pick and choose that when you're going to do that. It also has a bound Necromancer. Add 1 to the casting rolls for Soulblight Gravelords wizards wholly within 12 of any friendly model with this ability. So basically you have a +1 to cast from this moving around. Keywords: Death, Malignant, Soulblight Gravelords, Death Mage, and Mortise Engine. Notice there's no hero keyword there. Alright, its cost is 200. It's a Malignant and a Behemoth, so you just keep that in mind when you're list building. Max wound output is 18. Average wound output is closer to 4. Does not like melee combat. You just look at the profile and just say, if you're running this into melee on purpose constantly, you're probably not doing it right, unless you have a good tactical reason to do that. All right, the good. A 14-inch move at full health. It can fly, and gives out a bubble of +1 to cast. The bad, it's a 4+ save. It's not a hero. And why is it not a caster? It actually has keyword Death Mage, but it doesn't have any casting. Kind of a big letdown. It's just sad the unit's not a hero, a monster, a caster, something. It's missing a keyword to help it out, to make it worth taking, to make it more useful. Has a chance to do some mortal wounds in 12 inches, but once again, those mortal wounds require a lot of rolls. One of those mortal wound outputs are once per game. So on paper, you're thinking, okay, this will be a lot of more wounds, but in practicality, I don't think you're going to hit those as much as you think you would. 200 points is not bad, but what is it doing for your list? If you're taking a Mortise Engine, what are you taking it for? You're saying, hey, I'm taking a Mortise Engine. This is what it's going to do. What specifically is that? What is it trying to do? What are you trying to do with it? Let me know in the comments. If you're taking Mortise Engines, what are you using it for? A +1 to cast is nice. Like everybody wants a +1 to cast, but a corpse cart does it for less. So if you're just looking for that +1 to cast, then there's other places to go get that. It feels it wants to sit back and do mortal wounds, but the output is just not great enough to justify the cost. The reliquary should be at least D6, or hey, how about this? Let you use it more than once. It just needs a different mechanic. I just feel that you're paying a lot for something that is not that great. The unit rating I'm giving it is a C+. Seems to be at odds with itself, meaning that it sort of wants to be a hero or a monster or a wizard, and it has all these keywords, but it's missing other things. It just feels that it's not complete, it's not whole. Something is missing. For 200 points, take a unit of Blood Knights or Belladonna Volga. If I'm having 200 points left in my list, I could probably think of 3 or 4 units that I would take before Mortise Engine. So that's my assessment of the Mortise Engine and the Bloodseeker Palanquin. Let me know what you agree with. Let me know how you use them in your list. Thanks for watching, and y'all be good.